Welcome to episode 7 of the YouTube PPBDL channel. With me tonight is Jared. I think tonight is Saturday,
It's
March 28th. We're going to go a little deep dive on Big Mac's Innocence team, which is JD. Before that, I wanted to quickly talk about Josh's TV show bracket, which I think all of us loved. So I went with comedy. Comedy's kind of my wheelhouse. I loved every pretty much every show in the comedy region, and then the drama side I'm not really much on. So I went with the two shows that I had pretty much seen all the way through. So what were your thoughts on it?
honestly, I was really pleased. I had two big bugaboos. The main one being Chappelle's show up against The Office. I don't know about you, but my first deployment, all we did was watch Chappelle's show. So like that one holds a special place for me for that. But The Office, it's the goat. And then my MVP, I don't know if you saw my bracket, was actually Asian Jim Halbert because my favorite intro out of all of them. And then the other one was Rick and Morty and Stranger Things. So my second deployment, all we did was pass around movies of Rick and Morty. So you couple that with Stranger Things and the matching shirts I got with the wife. I thought it was a great idea.
Yeah, and I understand Josh's pain when it comes to trying to add all of these random lists up and then and kind of say like, hey, this is not my specific rankings or my list, but everyone's kind of just going to be like, well, how's this show not in there? Why is this show rated where it's at? Um, yeah, and not to go into too much on what we're going to do tomorrow with the video. Like my big thing was when it was kind of close, a coin flip. I just went back to how many times have I rewatched a show, which The Office is like the number one show that I always rewatch, and then what shows are still like must see viewing appointments going back to college where it was The Office, and like with a lot of my buddies it was South Park, so that's why I had South Park make it so far. And I had told you multiple times on the text threads, Game of Thrones easily would have won hands down if they would have just essentially done any plot line other than the one that they decided to air. So that's where
Yeah,
where,
yeah,
where I
Game
stood.
Game of Thrones, utter disappointment. I completely agree. Some of the dramas are okay. Like ER, I put in the group chat was a nice little nostalgic watching it, but there's some good ones. I really like Band of Brothers. I don't know. You have a history degree as well, so maybe you like Band of Brothers, but I don't know. I don't get the Breaking Bad hype, but I'll save the rest of my comments for tomorrow's video.
Yeah, I'll say Band of Brothers is definitely a military thing. I remember like multiple times during basic training if we had downtime, or I think it was over the 4th of July when we were kind of just stuck there, not able to do anything, and they just threw on Band of Brothers. So that's kind of a military wheelhouse one. Um,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, and we'll save the rest for tomorrow's hopefully video, and we'll try and figure it out. I've never used, what is it, Zoom? Is that the new thing that everyone's using?
So my wife has for like when she trains her teammates and stuff on makeup business and all that. But yeah, I don't know anything about it other than that.
Yeah, I mean, it should be fine. I'm just, all I do is I use QuickTime and then I just kind of screenshot where I want or what I want recorded on the screen. So whatever system that we do use, I'll definitely be able to capture it and then throw it up on our YouTube channel as well for the guys that aren't in that. Um, oh yeah, the last thing, these brackets, I definitely think we're gonna do multiple ones coming up. Maybe movies, maybe stuff like that. But my wife had thrown it up on Facebook. My daughter last night, I printed one off for my wife, and she was going through it, so my daughter saw it, and she definitely wanted to do one. So I know like the younger kids, they love Pokemon. So I just found one that was like original, the original 150, and that's what we were working on today. So I think Josh is going to probably start working on that one, and hopefully we've got the right age group for our league to where most of the guys have either seen it or know it or have played it before. So I think that one should definitely be one we're seeing in the next couple weeks.
You stole my next point. Was I look forward to the Pokemon one coming out because it's just going to be epic. It's going to be. You're absolutely right. I think we're all pretty much between the ages of 27 and whatever 33 for the most part. So I think we all are kind of in that sweet spot for growing up watching Pokemon. So
All right, wait. Did you just say your age and then my age?
no, 29.
All right, because I'm 33.
I went with Carter. I went with Carter being the youngest.
Okay, so this kind of brings me to my random Twitter, just scrolling. I found this, and I want to see if you can guess his age. It was a Jose Fernandez tweet saying Jose Fernandez would be this year old right now, and it blew my mind.
26.
So he's 27 currently. He'll be turning 28 in the summer, and it just seems like he's so much older. Would be so much older right now. But yeah, I mean he was so young and he was a stud right away.
The dude was amazing. His curveball, like that curveball fastball combination, was just impossible. And then also one of my favorite gifts of all time is actually Troy Tulowitzki hitting a blasting a line drive middle. He catches it, and Troy's like,
"Did you catch that?" Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, "Yeah, I caught that." So I'm sure Ryan Christensen will have a field day with that because I can relate anything we talk about back to the Rockies. So to include Fernandez, but yeah. So I tried to do the math in my head. I think he died in 2014.
Yeah, he was 24. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like something like that, but I don't know. Educated guess. I was close.
Yeah, I mean he was a young stud, and I honestly think like his death just derailed that whole franchise again. Like they've just been terrible ever since, and then they traded everyone off. So
yeah, that was a nice torpedo.
All right, so let's get to the meat and potatoes of what we're doing. We're going to try and keep this to probably like 10, 15 more minutes. Try, yeah. So we're going to go over JD's team, which is Big Mac and is Innocent. And we wanted to go with another one that didn't have a lot of prospects. He's got a handful that are in the top 100 or my top 100, and then he's got one stud who's top 2 or 3 guy that we'll get to later. But let's rewind back to 2016, and this is an interesting one because he inherited this team, right? So he wasn't there for the inaugural draft. So in 2016, right. I think the team name was Little Chubs, and looking at the list, which I'll put in the comments, the first player that he picked, or the team that was on his team, was the 21st pick, which was Jose Berrios, which was a great pick, and he used 10, high priority on him too. But he waited quite a while before we actually had a player on his team. So yeah, and then the next pick was 41st with Francis Martes, and then 46 with David Dahl. So JD was definitely not given any favors with his farm system, and I don't know if that's just kind of where he stands. His homerism definitely plays a part into where his farm system is now, but like inheriting this team with not a lot of depth in the farm system really did not help. So 2016, the 3 guys that I have highlighted were Berrios, Dahl, and then Josh Hader. So and then way down at the bottom is my boy Scott Kingery. We don't have to talk about him because he's been on multiple teams at this point. But yeah, let's just go with Berrios and Dahl to start with, and then we can go over any other guys that you have from 2016 draft.
Yeah, so I mean, Jose Berrios quietly, one of those ace in the holes, if you will. Doesn't quite get the love that the other aces do, but still can post elite numbers. David Dahl, I mean, if he could stay healthy, I love the man. I mean, in our group chat, Josh was saying that in his simulation, Dahl's already injured week 1 of the season, so that's just insult to injury for me. But I think what's surprising on here is you had like some really high upside guys too. It looked like he went Brandon Drury at 107, Ian Happ at 76, and then obviously Josh Hader at 61, who's one of the best relievers in baseball right now. I don't know if JD, like what ties he has to Arizona, but I thought the Zach Davies pick right after Zach Godley was interesting because I don't know if you know, but Zach Davies is from like all our hometowns. So like my little brother played baseball with Zach Davies in like Little League. Yeah. He went to me, Josh, Devin, like one of our rival high schools. Everybody went to Gilbert High School. He went to Mesquite High School, which is one of our rivals, Mesquite and Highland. Amongst others. So I thought that was pretty cool. He went kind of with some homer picks there at the end. 2016. Well, I guess this would have been Little Chubs, but 2016 was an interesting draft for them. It seems like looking across all the drafts, he's got a love for pitching, except for 2018, which is the outlier. But I have a note about 2018 coming up.
Yeah, I think and I'm okay. Yeah, so Josh definitely he confirmed it. Yeah, so Little Chubbs was not his. It was not JD's team. I didn't know if he just changed the name, so just making sure that yeah. So JD did inherit that farm system. Yeah, Barrios. It was a great play and it worked. And yeah, he's only got like 2 or 3 pitches, but he does well with them. He's a 200K stud who's going to give you great ratios. And then I thought David Dahl was a trade in there at some point, but he was just dropped. And then I think you picked him up or RFA'd him. So um, Hader, another great pick, and probably wasn't expecting him to become this huge setup man, and a stud closer at this point. But yeah, that one definitely worked. But there were a lot of swing and misses with the initial farm system. Do you have anything else for 2016?
No, nothing other than I had to actually go look up who Francis Martes was because I was like, I don't even remember at this point.
Same. A couple of the other guys, Jake Thompson, Tyler J. And I haven't heard a lot of them. So.
But that one, like specifically, my middle name is Francis, so I was like, "What? Who is this dude? Some big meaty dude playing for Houston."
So moving over to 2017, he only had one pick, but he had the first pick in the draft. And I think at the time Nick Senzel was the consensus number one or best available prospect. So I think any other team probably goes with Senzel because he had, I think, multi-position eligibility or was a stud coming right away and we thought was going to play. And it's been 3 years and we still don't know who he is or where he's playing or what the Reds are going to do with him. So
yeah.
I like the pick. I mean, there wasn't a lot to pick in 17, and yeah, we had Robert or not Robert. Was it who did I have? Sorry, give me a second.
No, you're good, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I think Senzel goes number one overall because of the multi-position eligibility. I know when I pulled Keston Hiura in the second round of the 2019 draft, he had second base and outfield just like Senzel did. So, yeah, that's just one of those. Unfortunately didn't pan out.
Yeah, so the 17 draft, it was Senzel and then Grant Dayton, who I think was with the Dodgers at the time, was going to be like their next stud and closer or reliever. Jarrell Cotton for you.
Daddy right there.
Gurriel went 4. And then like Eloy Jimenez was the guy I was thinking of at 1-8. And then, Josh pulls Vlad Jr. with the 22nd pick that year. So, yeah, there were a couple of guys that really became studs, but Senzel was definitely the top choice for all the minor leaguers that were available that year.
Right. If I remember that draft, it was more of everybody was trying to pull like a real cheap young stud. I know I thought Jarrell Cotton was going to be a number 2 for Oakland, and now he's floundering just with Chicago. Yeah. And I think if you keep going, that's kind of what the trend was leading up to your pick of Jimenez, and then Josh doing some good research and getting Vlad Jr. before the hype train took off.
Yeah, I mean the 2016 draft we had there were 12 teams. Yeah, so it was like 120, 130 players picked. So that was definitely a product of what happened in the 2017 draft. Most of our guys were not called up, and we didn't have a lot on a lot of roster spots available. So I think it was like who can help me now kind of more than a prospect hunting for that. So let's switch over to the 2018 draft. And looking back on it, he really crushed these first 2 picks. Was Bo Bichette and then Joe Adell. And I have on here that Adell at the time was like the 26th best prospect available for the draft, and he took him with the 16th pick. So maybe that was his homerism, working out in his favor. But yeah, Heliot Ramos was his 3rd pick as well. So he really did well in this 2018 draft.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously Bo Bichette, he's blossoming into a nice stud up there in Toronto, no doubt. Again, relating back to the Rockies because his dad played for Colorado, so no doubt that played a role. Joe Adell, he's the guy I'll talk about a little bit later. Yeah. But he still has Heliot Ramos. I've got him 52nd overall in the top 100. Brandon Marsh, I've got a 62. Nico Horner at 46. So I wanted to do his. We were talking back and forth which team we should do next. Not because he has a bottom farm system. He just doesn't have a lot.
Yep.
But he has a couple dudes that one can help him now with Sugo, and then 2 will probably help in the future moving forward.
Yeah, I think pound for pound, the prospects that he does have are, a lot of them are in that top 50, top 60 range, with Adele being, his superstar. So, yeah, you hit it right on the head there. He has a good farm system. He just doesn't have a lot in his farm system. So moving
Right.
over to the 2019 draft, and I think when I did my report or write up on this one, these were the two head scratchers. But he had the 30th and the 36th pick, so he didn't have a lot to work with anyways. So he went with Griffin Canning and Brandon Marsh. Both were reaches, and I'm not sure if either of them are going to pan out. He's still holding on to both of them, but not really sure what, other than just the Angels, um, what the thought process was there.
Yeah, I honestly don't really know. And looking at his team, okay, there he is. He did call up Griffin Canning, but yeah, I mean, maybe that dude's got a whip that's approaching 1.3. Um, I mean, him and Tuki Toussaint are kind of just like they're there. They're taking up roster spots. But yeah, Brandon Marsh, I completely agree. Those were two probably Angels picks. Brandon Marsh is utterly blocked. I don't know where you're going to put him. Not I wouldn't even DH him when he comes up because you got Trout signed until he decides to quit playing. Um, Joe Adell obviously going to be up. Then you got Goodwin patrolling wherever else on the Angels. So
Yeah,
I agree. Those are two head scratchers.
uh, I don't know what Adele was originally drafted by the Angels to play. I think he was at like second or short, and they moved him to the outfield after a while. So, um, but yeah, the Marsh pick, I don't know where he's going to play him, and maybe he doesn't. He just holds on to him and either drops him, or maybe he does eventually get the playing time. But yeah, both those picks were two of the ones that I was curious on. Doing a little bit more research on Canning after those picks, I like him. I think that was an okay pick, but he's already getting the PRP injections, and who knows when Tommy John's coming. So it might be a wait and see on him as well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it pans out. That could be one of those that ends up looking smarter at the end of it than it did when we first got him. But yeah, I don't really have much on Griffin Canning. I think he's a back end starter, maybe long end bullpen guy, maybe.
Yep. All right. So moving on to the 2020 draft, um, I would probably give his picks. Given that he had two pitchers, and I'm not really big on pitchers, I'd say that's B plus. I think he did great getting Matt Manning. 1.6 might have been a little bit too high, but he definitely wasn't getting him there at the 18th pick, which he picked Matthew Libertor. And then his last pick was what's it, Yoshi Tutsugo? Did I say that right?
Yeah. I don't know. I say Sugo, but
Sugo,
yeah,
Sugo, yeah,
maybe, however you say it.
yeah.
So yeah, I agree. I initially I had a lot of love for that Matt Manning pick. Even on our live video, I was like, ooh, I kind of like that. Is this Justin Verlander 2.0 out there in Detroit? So he's probably one of the top pitching prospects in baseball. Obviously behind the big Hammy, don't wet yourself, but like the Nate Pearsons and the Mackenzie Gores and stuff. Libertor, I actually had him on my board. I wanted to snag him. Had he fallen to me at 2.9, I probably would have taken him, but he went a couple picks before me. And then Sugo or Tutsugo, however you say it,
Yeah.
that goes right back to I want somebody that can help me right now with position eligibility and everything. I want him to come in and help me. So he's got third base, left field, and he's going to play in Tampa Bay because he's an international signee out of Japan. But
Yeah.
I agree. B is probably what I'd give this draft for sure.
Yeah, and I mean he pulled the trigger on the trade, so he has Rendon for this year, so he doesn't really have to bring up. I'll say Yoshi because I don't want to butcher his last name anymore. Um,
Right.
my only concern with the international guys, and Otani was pretty much the only guy that broke the mold, is these guys finally get posted by their teams, and they're in their late 20s, if not in their 30s. So you really can't utilize that 6-7 years of eligibility or of control that you have. And yeah, Sugo he's 28 right now, so he's on the younger side for an international player, but still, that's always my hesitation when it comes to these MLB ready guys. I could probably find someone that's going to give close to those same stats on the waiver wire, but looking at, yeah, that third base eligibility really does help. I mean, we saw the 4 or 5 studs that were going to go, and they were going to go for way too high. So maybe that was the thought process of, hey, I'll just get my third baseman right here in the amateur draft.
Well, it could have been one of those things too, knowing like, okay, I just pulled the trigger on Rendon. I traded away Arenado, so I got the third baseman I want this year. Let me see what I can do with my roster, and then Yoshi slides in, and he's got a third baseman for the next 6 years. 28, I mean, entering his prime. You're absolutely right. I was going to talk about his age. He's younger than some of the other international signees, except for the Otanis out there. But yeah, I mean, anytime you can have a guy entering their prime with double-digit home run power, controllable multi-positions, we'll just see how Tampa Bay plays him.
Yep, they're always the concern there.
A little wild.
So moving on to his farm system now, I've got five prospects in the top 50. With I mean top 70 honestly. So like I said, we had those. Most of his guys are within the top 50. But how many guys did you have in the top 100 in your lists?
So the top 100 going down, I've got Joe Adele, Matt Manning, Nico Horner, Elliot Ramos, Matt Liberatore, Brandon Marsh, and then Sugo.
Okay, yeah. So a couple differences with how we I don't want to say evaluate, but how we look at the prospects. I don't really add any of the international guys, so I didn't have Sugo on any of mine. And then Nico Horner was pretty unique because he got called up last year and Josh grabbed him, but he didn't RFA him. So it was a weird one where I don't really consider the prospects that we because he grabbed him after the waivers ran. So I didn't have him on his farm system, but yeah, we can talk about him because he's a top 50, top 60 prospect as well. So let's start with the lower ranked guy. So who was your last guy on the list?
The lowest rank was Sugo,
Okay.
but we can get him out. That's fine. And we can go with Brandon Marsh.
Okay, yeah, and I mean at the time he was I thought a bit of a reach, but now I've got him averaged as like the 67th best prospect in the minors, or all these lists have him averaged like that. Um,
That's pretty close. Averaging him out to all these lists, the ones I use, he's got at 62.
yeah,
So we're within a few people of each other, or rankings of each other for Brandon Marsh. So I don't hate that.
yeah, and then outfield prospects, it's just a crapshoot anyways. So it's playing time and opportunity really. So maybe he does skyrocket up the farm rankings this year.
It's possible that was one of those things that when kind of getting towards these lower guys on the list, where you could plug him in at 67 or 62. I started looking at depth chart, and when you start looking at the depth chart, everybody in the outfield is signed around him where he would play. Everybody's signed for the foreseeable future. Loads of control with Adele. Trout again is going to play for the Angels until he decides not to, and then Goodwin, he's on a contract that keeps him around hanging out a while too. So it's just one of those things of where do you put him?
Yeah. I don't have much to say on Ramos as well. Just kind of another outfield prospect. He comes in at 54 on my rankings. Um,
52 for me.
yeah, just the San Francisco. That's kind of the one. I don't really look at a lot of ballpark factors, mainly because most of these guys could get traded by the time they finally get to their major league team. But when it comes to looking at prospects at San Francisco, I'm usually out on them. What was it? Was it Luciano this year? Was the stud shortstop prospect, or move over to third base shortly? And that was one of the deciding factors of like, okay, we've got a group of 4 or 5 of these stud shortstops, but not a lot separating them. Maybe we'll look at the ballpark down the road.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think that's probably why Hunter Bishop fell in our amateur draft. It's kind of rare that a top 10 amateur pick goes undrafted the following year. So I thought that was kind of funny. But I know one thing I had kind of soured on him was because he played for San Francisco.
Yeah.
And again, it's hard to put out that far. But yeah. Yeah, and so back to your original point, that's why I said I kind of wanted to talk about Horner a little bit.
Yeah.
Because he is up with Chicago. 22 years old, kind of got that power speed factor. So I don't know how well this will play out, but he's on a fucking 1 year contract for $1. Um, so that could be a 22-year-old guy. Anytime you got control over him, that's always good.
Yeah, maybe he gets moved around the infield. Like, he's only got shortstop eligibility right now, but who knows what the Cubs are gonna do. Um, yeah, and he was definitely a guy that I was looking at last year, waiting for the call up, and then Josh just he got to him first, and picked him up.
Yeah, yeah, it's just one of those things of Chicago's kind of a mystery right now. I don't know if they're rebuilding or retooling.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who knows what they're gonna do? They're kind of like I said, they're a mystery to me.
Yeah. So kind of scratched on Libertor, moving over from Tampa Bay to St. Louis. Was really hoping that that was going to continue moving towards a little bit in what northwest towards Colorado, and try and get my boy over to Coors Field, but I don't think it's going to happen. So
Yeah, I love pitching prospects, but man, whenever we the Rockies acquire pitching prospects, they just die. It's so sad because I mean I remember we pulled the trigger sending Ubaldo Jimenez to Cleveland, and we got back like Alex White, who was like a top 10 starting pitching prospect. Drew Pomeranz was like one of the top pitching prospects in the game at that point, and both just got absolutely fucking slaughtered when they came to Coors Field. I don't think Alex White's playing baseball anymore. Um, Jordan Lyles came and got destroyed, and then he fucking just wiped out the entire the rest of MLB with like a 2.5 ERA the second half of last season. So it would have been nice to get Libertor over there, but nah, it wouldn't have been nice for fantasy.
yeah, I was really hoping for that Nolan Gorman Libertor best friend trade for Arenado, and probably not going to shape up that way anymore. But I mean, yeah, St. Louis is a great landing spot for him, and I think that kind of contributed to. I don't want to say Big Mac reached for him, but I think Libertor was on a lot of our radars in that second round, so I think it was a solid pick by him.
Yeah, Tampa Bay, they get them pitchers, they develop them, and then to ship them off. If you're going to ship them anywhere else that develops pitchers, it would probably be St. Louis, and then you send them there, and it's another just pitcher's haven.
That's that Cardinals devil magic.
That devil magic. So I mean, who knows? He'll probably win a Cy Young 2 years from now.
um, do you have anything to say on Matt Manning? I mean, I've got him. He comes in at the 20th ranked overall prospect in the minors right now, and he was the 8th available for our draft, and I think he went 1-6. So he was the top pitching prospect. I laid it out in the top 10 video as well, and we covered him a little bit during the RF or the amateur draft that no one saw because of the audio. So
that's still hilarious. Yeah, so same, very very close. He was 17 out of the top 500 prospects that my list compiled. So Matt Manning, I mean him and Casey Mize, that's going to be a disgusting 1-2 combo if they can develop these guys. What other notes do I have on him? I mean, last year, 2.5 ERA, sub 1,000 whip, 10K per nine, mid 90s fastball. I mean, what else? I mean, he should be up next year. I'm guessing the quote September call ups. I don't know with this damn coronavirus what September call ups are going to be. If that's going to be like mid October call ups now, but yeah, super high ceiling. I mean, he probably has a higher floor than Casey Mize, in my opinion, but I think both will be up this season.
Yeah, I mean, and everything sucks right now, but I was really looking forward, and I'm interested to see what's going to happen. Where so he never pitched in AAA yet, right? So it was kind of one of those like maybe he just gets sent down for a couple starts to get his feet under him, and then they call him up. So, like you had said, it's going to be really interesting what happens with the minor leagues this year if we play at all. How I think they worked on the agreement for the CBA for them for how they're going to treat prospects and service time whenever they start. But yeah, he was one of those guys that I was looking forward to seeing come up at the end of the year for a cup of coffee, but maybe he just doesn't come up at all this year now.
Yeah, like I said, who knows? Who knows how they're gonna run that back? I actually have him. Side note, one spot above my man Spencer Howard. So those just big right-handed pitchers with nasty not 12-6, but more 1-7 breaking balls is just it's going to be nice. So I don't know what to expect. I don't know what the call ups are. I don't know what the Super 2 control, how that contract plays into this season. We're living in the end times, fellas.
Yeah, the Ringer, one of their guys, did a great write up on how the minor league system just got completely boned over by whatever the agreement was that came up. I haven't read enough of it yet, but it was essentially like, yeah, they're just getting hosed this year, and service time and everything's going to be really interesting to see what happens coming up.
Yeah, that's probably a podcast for another time because I could rage all day about minor league players. I know in Colorado, I don't know if you went to many of the Sky Sox games before they turned into like some weird fucking flaming marshmallow. But I live like a mile east from the stadium, so like it was sick. We could see the fireworks every Friday and all that stuff, and those guys are just criminally underpaid.
Yeah, I followed the Sky Sox because it was the Brewers minor league affiliate at one point, and then they
After the Rockies,
yeah. So
the Rockies left a year after I got there. I
yeah,
was so pissed.
so a little bit of background on me. When my dad got out of the army, we moved up to Wisconsin. So I say Green Bay, Wisconsin is where I've lived the longest in my life. So I say my hometown is Wisconsin, or home state is Wisconsin. So yeah, I've got a little bit of fandom for the Brewers. So yeah, it was nice to see their affiliate there for a little bit. But let's go on to the last and final prospect, and then we'll kind of sign off. Consensus, I have him number 2 overall, and I think the lowest I've seen him, CBS had him at 5, and MLB had him at 6, is Jo Adell.
Yeah, so on two of the more prominent lists I follow, one he was number 3, and one he was actually number 2 ahead of Luis Robert. So those two are kind of interchangeable. And honestly, they're extremely similar. I mean, you're talking 70, 75 raw power to each field. Just, oh my gosh, you pair him with Trout and Otani, that's a middle of the order lineup that I don't think anybody wants to face. Probably, I would say he probably starts at AAA because you're going to want that Super 2, the Chris Bryant clause, if you will. You're going to want that control over him, but the dude is just an absolute stud.
Yeah, and I don't know if any prospect kind of lost more when this whole shutdown happened than him, because there were rumors that he was just going to come straight up, and he was doing well in the minor leagues. He was hitting 280 through the first couple weeks of training camp or spring training. But yeah, he's another guy that's going to be interesting to see how the service time and everything, how that works out for him when they're going to call him up, or how much playing time he's going to get this year.
Well, I mean, I think we kind of saw that when LA declined Cole Calhoun's option, which I think he signed with Arizona, which kind of a homecoming for him playing his ball at Arizona State, so kind of a homer there. But yeah, once they declined that option, I was like, all right, Jo Adell's probably going to be up, April at the latest with this team. Now I don't know, obviously, but I mean, the dude's probably going to hit over 300. Like, all he does is hit. I watched some BP of him live, I think on Twitter. One of the baseball scouts I follow was doing his BP this spring training. It was just stupid. Just stupid power that makes you look back on your little league playing days. Like, I never should have picked up a bat.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's definitely a top 3 prospect, and the speed is there. He just doesn't run a lot. I mean, he has a great stolen base. I think what it says, he's a success rate of 89%, but he's only attempted 28 steals in 200 games in the minor leagues. So it'll be interesting to see, once he comes up, if the Angels just kind of let him run wild like they did with Trout for the first couple years.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine you'd probably want him to at least get his feet wet, figure out how to run at the big league level. But yeah, I mean, holy cow! Like, if he does, I mean, you're talking he might edge out Yelich for that next top outfield spot behind Acuna and Trout. And if that happens, like, the Angels will just have a ridiculous outfield. Not to mention his defense. I mean, the defense is solid. He's super athletic, real strong arm. So that doesn't play in fantasy, but watching the dude play it's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. All right. So that kind of wraps up what JD's got for his farm system. Looking into, say this year actually was normal and we were playing, do you see any of these guys getting called up? I mean, he's kind of pretty much locked up his team. It's interesting that like he did call up Canning last year, so I wonder if if Manning or Liberatore gets the call at the end of this year, does he keep him down or does he move him up?
I would say Manning is probably the most likely to get the call up, and he probably keeps him down. There's no point in starting a contract in 2020. If this guy's going to slot in the rotation, if he's up and he's going to stay up, he's going to be in the rotation. There's no point in losing a year of control, almost like the Super Tuesday or Super Two rule, excuse me. But yeah, I would say Matt Manning's probably up. I don't see why he's even carrying Tuki Toussaint. He's going to be up for RFA at the end of the year, and I don't think anybody's touching that 1.5 whip with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, and on the hitting side, I do think Adele. It's hard because you see these stud prospects and they finally get the call up, and I think it's very difficult to just like control yourself, let them sit in the minors, and then eventually call them up next year. Maybe this year isn't your year, but maybe next year is when you really want to start calling them up. And I can't do it. As soon as I saw like Acuna or last year I think it was Austin Riley for me. Once he started hitting, I'm like, all right, he's coming up. I don't care. So I definitely don't think long term when it comes to the stud prospects that are actually hitting. So I would have a very difficult time if Adele gets called up to leave him in the minors for a year.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention Carter in some way, shape, or form in every video. But I mean, I don't see how he's going to keep Alvarez and Robert down. They're going to be studs. I mean, Alvarez, we already know, has 40 plus power. But I mean, to your original point, you're absolutely right. I slotted in Fernando Tatis Jr. like immediately last year. And I mean, should I have waited? I got a lot of injuries, but I thought I could compete last year. Kershaw's last year. I had Merrifield, Trey Turner. Losing Joey Gallo for 80 games didn't help me any.
I think there's a psychological effect as well. It's like, hey, I drafted this guy 2 or 3 years ago. It might have been a reach at the time, and he's all of a sudden becoming a top 5 prospect. I am going to call him up and enjoy the ride. So
yeah, I'm gonna enjoy the ride. So yeah, I'm enjoying the ride. I mean, I called up Keston Hiura this year. Last year I wasn't gonna do it. Just not worth it to me. But that boy's gonna hit double-digit steals and he's gonna hit 30-plus bombs. So no need to wait on Hiura. And I'd imagine the same thing with him. Maybe keep Joe Adele down this year if he's not immediately up. But I mean, if he's in his window, he's got Rendon. He's got a lineup chock full of Angels. Might as well add Joe Adele to it.
Yeah, and it goes back to like it. It is exciting to watch your team with the guy that you have on your roster also playing. So yeah, who does he have now? Let's see. He's got Rendon, Trout, Pujols forever and for always, David Fletcher, who has every position available. So yeah, he could have like 4 or 5 Angels in his lineup every day.
Literally. Keep it rolling. Not to mention Hansel Robles.
Oh yeah, those are just hitters.
Yeah,
sorry.
Griffin Canning. Like keep it up. I mean, I completely understand it. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I think very few of us actually stay away. I mean, I have Ryan McMahon, Nolan Arenado, Brendan Rodgers, Raimel Tapia. You feel like for your team, you feel like you know them better than other guys because you watch them every day.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's how I look at Colorado. Not to mention, I also have John Gray and Wade Davis. Not throwing the rest of that out there, but it's one of those things. The homer bug is real.
Yeah. So my closing comments for Big Mac's farm system, and this is going to be a theme when it comes to my specific division now with Big Mac, Hammy, and Beast. Personal bias. I think that I'm the front runner for the division, but I am terrified of all 3 of those teams' farm systems and the players that they have coming up. Every single one of them has like a top 5 dude that's getting ready to come up. So I think Big Mac's farm system is better than it looks on paper.
Right, and I think it's probably because some of these rankings are fairly low, more so because these guys are probably more MLB ready. Like you have the Nico Horner, who's again on a veteran contract, but he's still on the list, so I included him. I completely understand how you're feeling, by God, if Hammy gives up his team, I'm sure we each have 3 friends that would take over that monstrosity that we'll talk about probably in like 8 weeks because he's going to be near the top. And then Beast too. Beast has quietly had a very good past couple years drafting, especially with Adley Rutschman. He's extreme on pitchers, but yeah, if any of those like 15 pitchers he has pans out, that's going to be a tough division. I'd say right now you're the front runner, but over the next couple of years you're going to have some competition for sure.
Yeah. And the closing comments. We usually do our video on Friday or Saturday, or sometime on the weekend, and it sucks being in Hawaii for the time zone difference. So um, I reached out too late to try and get JD on, so he might not have even seen the text by the time we started recording. So uh, it, I think whoever we pick next, we'll decide shortly after this, in the next day or two, and then we'll try and reach out and schedule something towards the end of next week. That way we can have a guy on to, I don't want to say defend, but to kind of just give us his thoughts on where he sees his farm team and why he picked the way he did going forward. It would have been really interesting to hear JD, and maybe he can come on Josh's pod or on one of our videos later to explain what it's like to take over a farm system that it was a big one. It was like 10 or 12 players that he had no control over initially. So
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. If we can make it happen, I think that would be beneficial for everybody because then you kind of get. I know, like I bounce a lot of stuff off you and Josh, and excuse me, I have some good conversations with Hammy. But it'd be cool to see other people's thought process. Homerism aside, what they go for. Yeah, it does suck being out here. I mean, it's tough to hate living in Hawaii. But the time zone does make it difficult. So it's always fun. I'll wake up, at 6:30 tomorrow morning, and half the league's already watched the YouTube video. So it is fun waking up to comments about it, and then obviously the feedback and shit talking that goes on. So overall, I think Big Mac, I'd give his farm system a B- grade, and it's really helped by the 2 stud pitchers and Joe Adele.
yeah, I think we're gonna have a video at some point later on where we actually go and rank where the farm systems end up. Sorry. Yeah, in Big Mac, he doesn't have a lot, but he's easily middle of the pack when it comes to like how I do my roto, breakdown. He's seventh right now with with as few prospects as he has, and a lot of the guys ahead of him, it's just volume play, right? So, yeah, I do think he has an up and coming farm system, and he's one of the few teams that I don't want to say doesn't make trades when it comes to their prospects, but he has all 3 of his picks for the next 3 years. He doesn't have any more or any fewer. So um, either he just likes where he's at when it comes to amateur, he doesn't want to acquire more or lose any. But yeah, he definitely has. He has 9 picks, all 9 of his picks coming up in the next 3 years.
Yep, and I mean that works for some guys. The draft and develop. Um, yeah, I got no super big issues outside of like I don't know where the Brendan Marsh and the Elliot Ramos are going to play, but yeah, I'd say 7th is probably about right. And Roto's always a tough thing to compare to a points league, but yeah, it's tough taking over a team, and I'm glad that he's in the league. He contributes to the group chat, and glad I traded Arenado for him.
Yeah. So last thing, I think that bargaining agreement they had, it was they can limit this year's draft to like 5 rounds, and then I think they can move the J2 back. Uh, I think like to January or something for the next couple years. I don't think it's going to impact us at all because how many of us are really drafting prospects that late? Most of the first year player prospects are going in the first 5 or 6 picks anyways.
Right.
So I don't think it's going to impact a lot of my picks next year because I've got 6 of them. So I was concerned for a while that if they don't do this draft, what happens? I know Josh had talked about just rolling over essentially like this year didn't happen at all, but hopefully we at least get the draft. That way we have something to look forward to next off season. But you have any thoughts on hopefully the minor league draft happening?
I mean, I always hope it happens. I love the minor league draft. I actually like how it's like slightly more low key than football. They kind of just have MLB Network there. They're in the studio. I like watching the players. A couple years ago, they had them hanging their names up on the board where they went, putting on the hats. That's always cool. I mean, NFL is just a big, flamboyant, extravagant shit show. NBA is next, but then I really enjoy the MLB draft. So I hope it happens. I hope for the players themselves. I hope it happens because how horrendous would it be to work your ass off and dedicate your life to something, and then potentially not be able to experience that, delay it for a full year.
It would
So
be, the only irony would be, you know, blaze it up Jordan sitting down there reclassed to get out this year,
you
and then he can't because there's no draft. I don't wish ill will on him or anybody, but I do hope there is a draft. Last thing I want to say, uh, I watched an ESPN clip the other day where they talked about the first time they had players come to the MLB draft because they want it to be more like the NFL and the NBA, where we get the camera in front of these future stars. Do you know the one player that showed up the first year that they did this?
one player the first year they did it.
They,
Bryce Harper.
they sent invitations to like the top 30 dudes, and only one person came. I don't know what year it is, which would probably help, but it was shit. Give me a second.
If you give me a year reference, maybe I can guess.
Let's see.
But I do remember Bryce Harper was like ESPN's love child.
So I think it was the 2000. Oh man, hold on. It was either 10 or 11. It was the first year that they did this live. Oh, 2009 draft. Sorry.
Okay, because 2008 was when Kershaw and all them came out. So 2000, had Longoria in it too. So 2009. This is a tough one.
I'll pull it up and just give you some of the top players that were picked. I know this is not helping our time because we're already over like 45.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I don't.
Oh, it's not loading. Come on.
Let me see. I got my shit pulled up. Hold up. Okay. It's loading. That's a interesting like little niche tidbit of information to come up with. Okay, so let's see here. You got Strasburg, yeah. Dustin Ackley, Donovan Tate, Tony Sanchez. Oh boy, Mike Leake was in this draft too.
I hope someone out there is just yelling like, "I know who it is."
They probably are, like.
Or they saw that video clip too.
Yeah. Was it somebody in the top 10?
No.
I'm gonna say it was fucking AJ Pollock.
Hold on. It was not AJ Pollock. I just want to make sure like that I have this correct before I screw it up.
I mean, Mike Trout went 25th overall, so.
Mike Trout was the only dude that showed up for this first year.
Oh, you're right. Here it is, right here in the recap. Trout was the only player to show up for the draft. My guess is that if Trout wasn't from New Jersey, where MLB Network is, he wouldn't have been there. Marcos compares him to Craig Biggio. Wow.
Yeah, so I got Jose Fernandez in at the beginning, and then Mike Trout to close it out. Was the first player ever to be on the live draft to walk up and get his jersey.
I mean, that makes sense. He's Mr. Baseball. That's just one of those things. Mike Trout's a generational guy. It's hard to hate him. Yeah, that's hilarious.
All right, I got nothing else. You got anything?
No, other than that, now I'm mind fucked that I couldn't remember who all was drafted in.
It was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean 08. I knew 08 pretty good. Actually, I know 08 very good because the Rockies again just utterly screwed that draft up. We took some dude named Greg Reynolds who made like 5 major league starts. We took him before Kershaw, before Evan Longoria. Like, oh my god, just absurd.
All right, man.
Yeah, that's all I got. I hope everybody enjoyed this. Hopefully, JD enjoyed us talking about his minor league roster. We're definitely gonna have to get somebody to come on with us when we do your team and we do my team, because I'm gonna be singing when we're talking about my guys, and I'm sure you're gonna be gushing over yours as well. So
I'll probably be more. I'll want to talk more about the dudes I've traded than than who I actually have at this point. But
oh,
I think if anything, tomorrow when we get 4 or 5 guys, whoever gets on that chat, maybe we can just hash out like, hey, who wants to be the next team and when you can do it. So hopefully, like I said at the beginning of this week, we get the team that we're gonna do, and then we'll figure out a time towards the weekend, Friday, Saturday time. But that's all I got, Jared. Thanks for joining me, and I'll get this video up shortly.
it's a pleasure as always, and stay safe during the purge.
All right, see you, man.
All right, man.
All right, so that was Jared helping out again. We're sitting here, not a lot going on in our world. I love the brackets. Hopefully, we keep getting 4 or 5 more of them within the coming weeks, and we can have a productive debate on this TV show one shortly tomorrow and the next day. All right, see you.